Hi guys, good morning. Welcome to another episode of That Gardener channel. This is my mammoth sunflower. As you can see, I can't reach it. It's about 8 feet tall. So today we wanted to do a short video about space saving techniques in the garden and what we have been doing. As you guys know, we have a very small garden, but we try to do our best to save on the space and grow as much as we can with a diverse variety of ornamentals and vegetables. So going to take a little bit of a stroll through our garden and show you guys what has worked for us in terms of space saving. So let's get going. So one of the key things, of course, is when you're designing your garden, you want to make sure that you do follow some of the permaculture design principles. One of the things Bill Mollison also stresses quite a lot is that you need to study and observe the nature, how it's interacting within your garden space, and then accordingly you design your garden. So you need to firstly look at the movement of the sun. You need to look at where the walls are, how the birds are interacting in your garden, look at the nature and the weather, and then accordingly you design your vegetable patch and your garden patch. So one of the things that we, I think, have done somewhat successfully is when we came up with our vegetable garden patch, we designed it in a space within our entire garden where we get the most sun. So this particular patch, what we tried to make sure was that we try to get at least 4 hours of sun in the early morning up to 12 o'clock, from 8 to 12, and then we get the sun when the path goes all the way to the west side. We get another 4 to 5 hours of sun, so we end up getting at least 8 to 9 hours of sun, even 10 hours of sun at times, on a daily basis in this vegetable patch. So that was quite important for us to consider when we actually designed this when we designed this small vegetable patch, and that's also to ensure that we get the maximum yield out of a small space. So this beautiful trumpet-shaped flower, Thurnberga, we have actually grown it on a guava tree, and it's really making sure that we can use whatever trees and shrubs we have on the environment that we are gardening in, has been appropriately adapted to and integrated. So this wine glowing flower has actually done really well. It has taken over this guava tree, used it as a natural trellis, and it has grown all over the guava tree. As you can see, it's quite beautiful, and it has a very good symbiotic relation with the guava tree, where the flower of the Thurnberga brings a lot of bees and birds, as well as the guava tree brings a lot of bees and birds. So they help each other out, and both are growing extremely well. So really it's about using whatever you have naturally happening in the nature, observing how it's interacting with other elements, and to really ensure that you can use it for your benefit. So that's why we actually managed to grow the Thurnberga at the foot of the guava tree, and then we just trained it to grow against the guava tree, which has saved a lot of space and benefited the guava tree as well. The third technique, that's a quite obvious one that we do quite a lot, is really making sure that you can interplant the flowers, fruits, as well as that you can interplant the flowers, fruits, herbs, and the vegetables all together. We do that quite a lot in our vegetable patch. Even though we call it a vegetable patch, it has everything. So we have the leafy greens, we do have a lot of herbs, and then we have fruits like strawberries, as well as flowers like sunflowers and marigolds that are growing everywhere in our little patch. And that has helped us quite a lot, having this diversity brings a lot of friendly bees, and it helps to control the pests in our garden, as well as it really does well when it comes to pollination of the vegetables and the fruits. We tend to always use this method throughout our garden, throughout the year, and that has helped us to really maximize our yields and really control the pests and having that diversity and maximizing the use of this small space. So growing vertically is a big one, related to our second point that we were talking about, the Thurnberg technique that we have done, where the vine of the flowers are growing on the guava tree. We are doing the same when it comes to vertical growing of the tomatoes through using of trellis, as well as growing vertically the beans and the peas, as well as using the sunflower that we have growing, which works as an absolutely great trellis for the tomato plant. So we are having the tomato trained to grow on the sunflower, and that's been a really amazing trellis for us. And we did the same with the cassava. The cassava tree grows quite well vertically, and we have used it as a trellis for the tomatoes to grow on it. So that's another good way of doing vertical gardening, as much as possible using the limited space. As part of the vertical gardening, something that we have been experimenting with is growing against this border wall. As you can see, we have a lot of natural greens growing against this wall, but we have also done the same with our pumpkins. The pumpkins have been growing against this wall, as well as the tomatoes. And then we're trying to also do the same with the corn as well. So we just tie it to the border wall and it grows against the wall. So it's a very good use of this small patch of land here against the wall. The fifth technique I wanted to talk about is growing in the shade. This part of our garden doesn't get a lot of sun. It gets maybe 3 to 4 hours of sun during the day, and sometimes even less than that. However, what we have tried to do is we have worked really hard to try to grow plants that can survive in a little bit of shade. That includes trying to grow some of the flowers, ornamentals, as well as some of the leafy greens in a bit of the shade. And that has worked quite well in terms of using the space as well. And then the sixth point, since we are here, I wanted to talk about is using containers. We have used recycled plastic bags here, and as well as some of the pots, and we have put it against the border of our house here, and really grow vegetables such as peas and ginger, as well as turmeric, in a bit of a shade. However, making sure that since the soil is quite poor in this part of the garden, we have used the containers to amend this technique. So we have done the same here. As you can see, we have used containers to grow a lot of our ornamentals in the front part of our garden, and the reason is really the same, because the soil is quite poor in this part of the garden. So we wanted to make sure that we can still grow beautiful flowers using containers and also using raised beds. So most of these are either raised beds or containers in this part of the garden. Here as well, you can see we did a raised bed for our herbs, and then we have a bunch of containers and pots for our flowers, mint, herbs, as well as some of the roses as well. So the seventh technique that we have employed in our garden to maximize yield in a small space is really growing a lot of the vegetables and fruits and ornamentals with short harvest time. That's been quite key for us, because we want to make sure that we have a ton of vegetables and flowers growing in rotation and not growing for a long time in the same space with a long harvest time. Example of that would be something growing like a potato. So instead of that, what we do is we grow a lot of these leafy greens. We grow a ton of chilies, as well as a lot of flowers like sunflowers and marigolds, a lot of eggplants, a lot of grass varieties as well, like lemongrass. And then what we see with the herbs as well as the herbs, all variety of herbs, and that really helps us to make sure that there is short maturity time within our garden and we can keep harvesting throughout the year. Those were the 7 techniques and tips that we have employed in our small garden here. I hope you found them useful and maybe you have been doing many of them as well. I would love to hear in the comment section if you could also recommend any other techniques that you have been using or anything that we have been doing wrong that could be improved. Our goal for this year is to grow more vertically as well, to improve on those techniques, maybe use hanging baskets, as well as grow more on the trellis, given that we have very limited space. And then anything else that you can think of, please do let us know. Would love to learn from you. Thanks a lot for joining again, guys, and see you next time. Bye.